is about to commence right now. I'm sure you must have seen that report. The statistics, very grim indeed. 96% of malaria deaths here in Africa. Nigeria accounting for 31% of these deaths, coming to about 200,000 people on a yearly basis. That is certainly a lot of people. Well, we're going to be discussing what we're doing about that. This new malaria vaccine that has been found, to what extent has it been approved? What does a provisional approval mean? And how soon will we be seeing this vaccine rolled out? What are the hopes for Nigerians when this vaccine is eventually rolled out? Joining us this morning to discuss this is Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, who is the Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC. Madam, welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. It's good to see the footages about malaria and the fact that all of us suffer from malaria one time or the other during the year. Thank you.
Indeed, we saw you at that event yesterday organized by the Federal Ministry of Health. We also saw that there was more than one event organized in terms of drawing attention to the prevalence of malaria on World Malaria Day, which was yesterday. It is interesting that we have a whole day to I don't want to say celebrate, that's certainly not the word. We're not celebrating malaria, but to draw attention to the issues, to the disease called malaria. So for you, as somebody who's been in the pharmacology business for the longest of times, why has this disease continued to be prevalent when we know that it is preventable and we've seen that countries have been able to overcome this particular disease?
Well, it is a matter of development of a country and understanding of the epidemiology of malaria and actually the role of the environment on the development of the mosquitoes. First, we are low middle income country. Where you don't have a lot of people educated in terms of what could cause malaria, meaning the environment, then there's a problem. In the US or Europe, you see drainages that are covered. You don't see flooding all over the place. So the environment is conducive not to have the mosquitoes breeding. In our country or in Africa generally, that is not the case. And you've read the statistics, we have seen the statistics. It's worse than anything that COVID-19 could have brought to us, and yet people are still dying. And that is why it is extremely important to have this malaria vaccine that will prevent the transmission or the disease actually from happening.
Well, truly worrisome indeed to think that a disease that has been with us since time immemorial, many years after, we're still battling to see how we can overcome or eradicate this particular disease. But let's go now, because you've already raised the issue of the vaccine. A number of people were excited when they heard about the vaccine that has now been given provisional approval. So can you shed a little more light? Because we understand that there are two of them. There is one that Nigeria has applied for, which we understand will be available in 2024. And there is an Oxford vaccine, which we understand. Which one of them have you given provisional approval, first of all? I think you can help us clear the air here.
Okay, we NAFDAC approved the R21 vaccine for children under 5, specifically for this one under 3 years old. The second vaccine that they are talking about was tested and was not found effective enough. There are 2 malaria vaccines for children that I know about. The first one was not effective enough, and Nigeria was not part of that. This one, Nigeria is part of it. That is R21. And we gave provisional approval after very rigorous approval process. NAFDAC has 3 ways of approving vaccines. We can approve through reliance, meaning WHO has given for emergency use listing approval, and then we do very quick and expedited and approve. We can approve through recognition, meaning another very stringent regulatory agency has approved without even WHO, and then we recognize that particular agency and we do our own approval also. The third one is neither a stringent regulatory authority or another stringent regulatory authority or WHO has approved. And then we do what is called full approval. That is essentially what we did for this malaria vaccine. It was developed actually by Serum Institute of India, or it was produced by Serum Institute of India in conjunction with Oxford University. So we got that dossier of this vaccine sometimes last year, towards the end of last year, and we decided to have full approval. First, because it is 75% effective. For a vaccine, for a malaria vaccine, that is great. However, it is not what is written only that we have to, or what we know as the efficacy, we have to go by. We have to check every line of the dossier to ensure that, yes, science speaks. This is science-driven, that is science-driven in the dossier. So what we did was to have 2 sets of review, and this is the first time in the history of NAFDAC that we're going to have an expert body from outside, independent. This expert body didn't interact with any member of NAFDAC. The interaction was mainly to me, because I don't want any influence, interference with NAFDAC. And they were made up of 4 university professors, some of them fellow of Nigerian Academy of Science, and they did a thorough review independent of us, while our own staff brought from different disciplines, different directorates in NAFDAC, were also doing their own review. It was extremely rigorous, and at the end of the day, the external experts committee submitted their review to me, and our own staff, our own committee also submitted their review, and then we came together. Both committees, the joint committee came together, and the reviews were similar, and that was what brought us to giving provisional. And why we gave provisional is that, first, this vaccine was not tested in our country. It was tested in 5 African countries, but did not include Nigeria. Therefore, it is our belief and strong opinion that it should also be tested in our country. Africa has similar disposition in terms of environment and what could affect the effectiveness of vaccine or any medicine for that matter, but we insisted that it should also be tested in our country. We will not expect anything different, but we did that for COVID-19 vaccine. Because it wasn't tested.
So, as a result, I mean, because you have explained just how the approvals are given, what processes they usually go through, and you've also explained why you have given provisional approval. But it does appear that it still has to go through one more process, which is the testing phase, before you can now approve it for full use. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. You are absolutely right. We have to do that to ensure that whatever mightn't have been observed during the phases 1, 2, and 3 that were done by the manufacturer, that whatever were not captured, we will be able to capture. And bear in mind, Nigeria has 3 seasonal vaccine, seasonal transmission periods for malaria. We have the all year round in the south, middle belt, different season. In the north, it is maybe 3 to 4 months of the year. So Nigeria actually represents almost the whole of Africa in terms of transmission modes or transmission periods. So what we're going to do is that we're going to gather data. We're going to do this clinical trial. We call it phase 4. We also did it for COVID-19 vaccine. We did passive surveillance. We did active surveillance. Passive surveillance is that we were giving the vaccines to everybody and we were collecting data in terms of side effects, adverse events following immunization. We did active study where we actually monitored them for more than 3 months, gathering data. So this one, because it has never been used with us and didn't go through WHO, we're going to do even more observation. And this will involve some laboratory work and whatnot for the COVID-19 vaccine.
Professor Ade, if I may come in here, ma'am,
Yes,
you said this is phase 4, and so NAFDAC is going to do its own test. Nigeria is going to do its own test. When would that testing start?
that is a
Sorry? Well, we're hoping that Professor Ade will get her back so that we can talk about that testing process. I mean, she's talked about the fact that they've done 2 reviews, an independent body and then Nigerian body doing his reviews, but the vaccine cannot be administered yet until it goes through a testing process in country. And she talked 3 transmission periods in Nigeria, and the north, the south, and the middle belt because of the climate situation. And if you go down south, it's like the whole year round, but the middle, it's like 3 months, and then up north is a little less. But hopefully, at the end of the day, we'll see an end to malaria. In some climes, what they've done, I think it's Singapore. They manufactured some kind of laboratory mosquitoes and put them out there that helped to what they used to take out the Anopheles carrying mosquitoes, so that at the end of the day malaria is sort of like knocked out from that.
I do know that abroad, I mean in the US and even Europe, that you still have mosquitoes.
Yes.
They just don't transmit malaria. So I mean, if it's been done in other places, how difficult is it to do it in ours as well? I know that the climate is different. Yes, that makes a huge difference, and then the environment as well in terms of how our propensity towards sanitation, etc. We used to have sanitation days once every month, which was not even enough, but at least it was there, and to also raise that consciousness. But now it's been scrapped. You have to ask what are our attitudes towards sanitation, things like drainages. Open defecation is another kettle of fish. A lot to really. But when you look at how many people malaria kills, 200,000 every year on a yearly basis. We are accounting for 31% of global deaths. It's something that Nigeria really needs to take very seriously.
Kayode and Bukola, I mean, Professor Ade, some of the things she's reeled out is quite interesting. I was going to ask her a question as regards what the World Health Organization is saying about this particular vaccine and the other vaccine, because it's that argument that the World Health Organization is pushing for one, but Nigeria and one other African country has given a provisional approval for this particular one, the R21 vaccine. And so I really do hope that we could get Professor Ade back to clarify on some of these things, so that going forward, because there was this palpable excitement across the country when it was heard that Nigeria was given approval, regulatory approval, provisional approval.
I think what's even more concerning is the fact that it's a children's vaccine. So there are questions as to who are they going to be testing them on? Is it children as well? Who are going to be? I mean,
that's the other side of it.
We already have a thing with vaccines in the first instance.
Remember, there was a vaccine that was administered to children, I think in Kano or thereabout, that some 5 to 6 years ago, that caused a lot of issues, and that matter is not really has not fully been rested. There's still families that are living with the effect of the after effects of that vaccine. So hoping that this will not be the same case as regards to R21.
I wonder if Bukola and Kayode are looking forward to this vaccine. Is this something that they'll be willing to administer, be a part of the phase 4 trial when eventually the trial starts? Will you be offering yourselves as guinea pigs?
Well, last I checked,
if the vaccine is for children, I think we're disqualified already.
Honestly, I mean, the case Nyota talked about was the 1996 situation is one that will resonate with a lot of people. But malaria is quite interesting because literally everyone has had an experience with malaria at one time or the other. And I'm glad we're having this conversation about the vaccines. A lot of people got vaccine aware during COVID-19. I mean, I know people who didn't know anything about science going through some of those research papers, going through phase 1 trial results, phase 2, phase 3. So I think awareness has increased right now, and I think we can leverage on that to have this conversation. As she pointed out, there are 2 malaria vaccines being pushed now, the RTSS and R21. Nigeria gave provisional license for the R21, as she said. But it's interesting because R21 has an efficacy of over 70% according to the trials. By the way, the results of the phase 3 trials for the R21 has not been released out there. I mean, there's still anticipation as to what the results would look like. But the RTSS, which the WHO, has, in fact, I think there have been 2 phase 3 trials for the RTSS. The WHO is supporting this, has given some sort of approval for it. That one is not the one that Nigeria is focusing on.
And Kayode, it would be interesting to have Professor Adeyeye back to provide clarification on because for the RTSS, we find that it's been tested in Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, and has reached more than 900,000 children.
But the efficacy, I think, for that one is about 60%.
It's interesting, and we need some clarification because if we talk about genetics, if we talk about individual makeup of the people in Nigeria and in Kenya and in those countries, we could almost say that perhaps we're almost the same.
Well, so we have her back.
Why we do not have that kind of result in Nigeria? Why we couldn't get approval for that? We need some form of clarification. But I hear we have her back now.
Okay, we'll try to, of course, get her to respond to those very important questions you raised.
And then it's also very important to talk about development. That was how Professor Adeyeye started, because that's what it's a contributing factor to the persistence of malaria in Africa, particularly Nigeria, that contributes, the highest amount of the burden on the continent. You find, open gutters, you find a lack of sanitation, and you also find this very big problem, Kayode. A lot of Nigerian women still go to traditional birth attendants, for a delivery, for their reproductive health. And that's at the heart of the matter, because then you find that the first 5 years of the children, the children do not receive the attention of primary health care because of the problem of awareness. But if we could beat awareness during COVID-19 and we could achieve mass vaccination, there are a lot of lessons that could be learned there, to get sensitization across to the people in the hinterland such that women can make their children available for immunization.
What's also interesting, this is World Immunization Week, and then it coincides with the World Malaria Day, so it just comes together. Nyota, I like the conversation about research about what is it, castrating female mosquitoes so that they're not able to transmit malaria. I think that's what you were referring to. I'm not sure how that will work or if that will work right here, but certainly something to explore. And we do hope that we get Professor Adeyeye back. Okay, she's joined us now. Prof, you were responding to the question that Nyota asked about when this trial will begin in Nigeria. Add to that the various levels of approval. The WHO for RTSS, but Nigeria is focusing on R21.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the break in transition. The RTSS did not include Nigeria because from the beginning we saw that the effectiveness was 30% or about 30-something percent. So we did not agree to join the clinical trial. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me. But for the R21, after reading the dossier, I believe that Nigeria should join. First, because we have a high probability of success. If something is 75% effective from the beginning, then we know that very likely to be successful, or most likely. For the RTSS, it was 30-something percent right from the beginning, and we decided not to join. I hope I've answered your question, or you can...
Professor Adeyeye, how come the same RTSS achieved a high success rate in other African countries, Kenya, Malawi, and it was 30% in Nigeria?
No, it was never tested in Nigeria. The starting point for that vaccine was 30-something percent efficacy. It was never done in Nigeria at all. We did not accept to be part of that trial from the beginning. It varied. It was 40-something in one place, 30-something in another place. When you now bring, I'm talking of in Africa, when you now bring everything together and do the average, it was very poor. So the RTSS never crossed into Nigeria at all. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, well, even though we see also that it ranges from 30% to 60%, and I mean, the WHO seems to be sticking with the RTSS. In fact, to listen to the country representative, I'm sure you may have caught that conversation saying that, well, for the R21, they do not have enough data on it to be able to approve or endorse it. But the RTSS looks like the WHO is going with that one. Add to the fact that the R21, the phase 3 trials, we've not exactly seen the result out there yet. It's not been published, and I've had to go through different journals looking for it. But the RTSS, I think there's been at least twice they've had to do that phase 3 trial, even though the efficacy is low. But regarding timeline that Nyota asked for, when will the trials begin in Nigeria, and for who? Because some adults are excited, but from what we're hearing, it looks like it might not get to them.
Thank you. The clinical trial will begin within the next 6 weeks. I've been talking with the manufacturer, with the market authorization holder in Nigeria. So the clinical trial will begin very soon. The experts have suggested colleagues, younger colleagues in the universities that will be part and parcel of the clinical trial. The fact that Ghana, which is maturity level 3 organization like us, approved this also provisionally. And now we also did a provisional approval, suggests that we are going somewhere. A regulatory agency must be strong enough in terms of having a critical thinking mindset to be able to evaluate judiciously a particular dossier or the other and come up with a decision. The RTSS was approved saying that, oh, we don't have anything, even if it's only 30% of the children that should have died that will not die, or the death will be prevented, then that is good enough. But we didn't take that up as an agency to be part of the trial. This particular R21 had been submitted to WHO, and they're going to be doing their own review, and I'm sure they've already started actually.
Right.
So the 75%, I believe, is a great point, or great means, to start, great efficacy to start with in terms of our own people. But the clinical trial will start very, very soon.
Right, and the focus is on children, not adults. Am I correct? All right, we'd like to thank you so much. It's very interesting, the dynamic playing out here, but it's good to see that NAFDAC is trying to think independently and at least do what is best for the country. And we wish you the very best in that one. Professor Mojisola Adeyeye is the DG, National Agency for Food, Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for the break for allowing me to be part of the continuation. Thank you so much.
It's okay. It's for the national good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to break now. When we return, we focus on politics. Very intriguing situation playing out in a state in Nigeria. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us.